Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Alian and we're going to take a closer look at how to properly sample kick drums from a track. So sampling kick drums is obviously cool and a nice way to quickly find some samples which you like, because sample packs many times don't really have what you're looking for. So sampling them can be faster and a nicer way to do it. Obviously we don't own the rights to the stuff that we sampled, so we cannot actually release it or use it for that, but for like projects for fun, I think it's fine to do it. Anyway, I'm just going to go over my process of sampling a kick by the example of Biceps Visions of Love, because it's a track I really liked and I actually did sample the kick for something else. So I thought it's a cool example to show my process of how I go about it. So usually I start the following way. I turn off the warp because I have auto warp on, and in this case we kind of want the file in its original in its original state, so we don't want any warping going on. And I also turn down the volume a bit because the track is obviously limited to like 0 dB, and we don't want to have any clipping and this kind of stuff going on while we're working. So turning down the volume a bit is a good way to start. Then I would usually listen to the song and try to find the cleanest sample of the kick that I can find throughout the song. And sometimes it's in the intro, sometimes it's in the outro. In this case, there's actually a part of the song where there's pretty much only the kick drum playing, with a little voice and like delays and stuff. So it could be a good point to sample from here. Give it a quick listen. So we could find a pretty clean sample in this part, but since I kind of want to show how to do it with an intro or outro kind of situation, I'm not going to sample it from here in this example. And actually throughout the song, there's a little shaker or hi-hat on top of the kick drum, which I really like because they work very well together. So I kind of wanted to sample that kick drum anyway. So in this part, there is no shaker on top of the kick drum, so I didn't really want to use it. So in this case, we're going to sample from the beginning of the intro. Sometimes you have to be careful with intros or outros because the kick changes throughout the track, and sometimes there's less sub or a shorter kick in the intro, and then the actual kick comes in later. So just make sure to not fall for that and actually find a decent sample of the kick that you want to sample. So let's work with the intro. The intro sounds like this. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's like a normal intro with like drums, hi-hats, shakers, this kind of stuff. But with some techniques, we're going to be able to clean up the kick drum and actually get a nice sample from it. So I'm going to cut out all the stuff that we don't need and just start with the initial kick drum sample. So now in Ableton, you get some fades and this kind of stuff, and that can be kind of annoying. So be careful to not have the fades messing up the tail or the attack of the kick. So here I think we actually have some space in the beginning, so I'm going to turn off the fades. You can do that over here by showing fades. And here I'm going to keep the fade in order to kind of smoothen out the tail. I'm going to zoom in a bit and just get rid of this part, and that should be cool. And then I'm going to crop the sample just so we don't have this big audio file that we're working with the whole time. Cool. So now let's give it a listen. So it sounds relatively clean, but we have this hi-hat in here, which is annoying and which we want to get rid of. And just using an EQ to cut out the high frequencies, since hi-hats are more like high and mid frequencies, doesn't really work in this case because it's going to mess with the attack and the beginning part of the kick. So I'm going to show you guys in a technique how to clean up a specific part or something of the kick drum without messing up the other parts of the kick. There are a few approaches to this, obviously. Damn, now I lost the file and the sample. There are a few approaches to this, obviously. You could kind of chop the sample apart and then just EQ the later part, for example. But none of them really give you a clean result like this technique does. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using the concept of phase cancellation, because as you probably or maybe know, if you switch the phase or flip the phase of a sample and then layer it on top of the original sample, you're going to get complete cancellation because yeah, the waves cancel each other out. So we can kind of use this phenomenon to just kind of try and isolate the hi-hat that we want to get out, and then flip the phase of that hi-hat to then cancel that hi-hat out of the original sample and be left with a clean sample without the hi-hat. And the way you do that is you kind of chop apart the sample and then actually end up EQing one part of it, but using a linear phase EQ, because what EQ does, it kind of delays frequencies in a way that they cancel out, and then you can take out frequencies by doing that, but it changes the phase of the sample. And a linear phase EQ does it in a way that preserves the phase of the sample. And we need that to happen, because if we change the phase, we have different waveforms which then don't cancel each other out perfectly anymore. So we're going to be using a linear phase EQ. And there's some free plugins out there. If you do a quick Google thing, you can find a free linear phase EQ. But I'm going to use the Pro Q2 because it's a pretty cool EQ. And down here you can change the mode to like linear phase. And besides that, we're going to be using some plugin, or you need some plugin of some sort which can change or flip the phase of the sample. In this case, in Ableton, you can use the utility plugin for that, and by kind of phasing, flipping the phase of both channels here, phase left, phase right, flipping them upside down. So right now, if we play, we shouldn't hear anything because they cancel each other out perfectly. So we do see the amplitude here, but nothing arrives to the master because they cancel each other out perfectly. So now we talked about the chopping apart, and we now know, or we kind of know if we listen to this guy alone, that the beginning part is fine, and it's just the hi-hat that we want to get rid of. So we can say all this part in the beginning can kind of stay the way it is. Okay. So now we're all more or less halfway through the sample, and now we're going to use the fades to kind of smoothly introduce the part of the shaker. And the reason why I don't just cut the sample off here and then use this part only is because even though, yeah, the shaker or the hi-hat have like high and mid frequencies, there are also going to be some of those in the part before. And if you just abruptly chop off or introduce the shaker here, it's not going to sound very natural and smooth. So using the sample like this makes it cool. If we now give it a listen, we can, okay, actually I have to mention something else. So I realized this perk, or this kind of this like bug which happens if I'm using a linear phase EQ or something like this, it introduces some delay, and that can also mess up the kind of the whole concept of this. But usually it works well enough. But anyway, so in this case, when I'm playing from here, the waveforms don't lay on top of each other perfectly and cancel each other out. So I do still hear the part back here, which we're trying to phase out. But if I'm playing the sample from here, it actually does work. It doesn't, like in this case, it actually does cancel out the shaker over here. Or this sample which we're using here has the opposite phase of the one up here, so it's taking out exactly what we have here from this sample, so we don't hear it. But if I press play from here, I do hear it. Super weird, but just find a spot that it's working from, and then you should be fine. Anyway, so now we have to do one last thing. Right now we're kind of carving this sample out of this sample, but as we can see here, there's still a lot of like lower frequencies, and we don't want to mess up the tail of the kick. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate that shaker by using a high pass or a low cut, and doing it relatively steep in order to really leave the low end intact. And now kind of look for where the shaker is. So now if we listen to this one in solo, we can see we only have the shaker. And here we have the low frequencies, which we want to leave intact. So yeah. So just to go over the logic behind this again, right now we only have these frequencies left, and these frequencies here are going to get flipped upside down and then carved out of or cancelled out of this one, out of this sample. And this is the sample which we're going to be left with, which is going to be the kick sample that we want to have. So now we're taking out this sample from here, and if we listen to both of them at the same time, we realize, yeah, the shaker is in the beginning, but this shaker is gone. Now I'm going to do another audio track to record this, and I'm going to use resampling for that. So yeah, enable, started from here and press record. So now it recorded the kick. Cool. Just for you to see, I'm going to move this sample to the side, but just for you to see that if I press from here, press play from here, it doesn't work. Oh, it actually did this time. That's cool. Fair enough. Okay, the perk is gone when you look at it this way. But anyway, it doesn't matter then. So here we go. Okay, let's record it again. Cool. Now we have the clean kick drum sample, and you're pretty much done. Just to prepare to compare, we can listen to this fella up here. This is what we had before. And this is what we have after. Obviously there is a difference in volume right now, but if I bring this guy up, I don't want to warp it. I bring this guy up. Cool. So yeah, this is my technique for sampling a kick drum. Up next, I'm going to be talking about how to properly tune a kick drum. So stay tuned or subscribe if you want more of these videos, and if you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to to comment or contact me on Facebook or anywhere. I always reply. So yeah, have a good time, guys. Bye.